Hello, this is day 61 of reading one canto of the Divine Comedy every single day. We are on Purgatorio, Canto 27, which I will read from the Longfellow translation before giving some quick comments. As when he vibrates forth his earliest rays in regions where his Maker shed his blood, the Ebro falling under lofty Libra, and waters in the Ganges burnt with noon, so stood the sun. Hence was the day departing, when the glad angel of God appeared to us. Outside the flame he stood upon the verge, and chanted forth, Beati mundo carde, in a voice by far more living than our own. Then, no one farther goes, souls sanctified, if first the fire bite not. Within it enter, and be not deaf unto the song beyond. When we were close beside him, thus he said, Wherefore even such became I when I heard him, as he is who is put into the grave. Upon my clasped hands I straightened me, scanning the fire, and vividly recalling the human bodies I had once seen burned. Towards me turned themselves my good conductors, and unto me Virgilius said, My son, here may indeed be torment, but not death. Remember thee, remember, and if I on Geryon have safely guided thee, what shall I do now I am nearer God? Believe for certain, shouldst thou stand a full millennium in the bosom of this flame, it could not make thee bald a single hair. And if perchance thou think that I deceive thee, draw near to it, and put it to the proof with thine own hands upon thy garment's hem. Now lay aside all fear, turn hitherward, and onward come securely. And I, still motionless, and against my conscience, seeing me stand still motionless and stubborn, somewhat disturbed, he said, Now look thou, son, twixt Beatrice and thee there is this wall. As at the name of Thisbe oped his lids the dying Pyramus, and gazed upon her, what time the mulberry became vermilion, even thus, my obduracy being softened, I turned to my wise guide, hearing the name that in my memory evermore is welling. Whereat he wagged his head and said, How now? Shall we stay on this side? Then smiled, as one does at a child who's vanquished by an apple. Then into the fire in front of me he entered, beseeching Statius to come after me, who a long way before divided us. When I was in it, into molten glass I would have cast me to refresh myself, so without measure was the burning there. And my sweet father, to encourage me, discoursing still of Beatrice, went on, saying, Her eyes I seem to see already. A voice that on the other side was singing directed us, and we, attent alone on that, came forth where the ascent began. Venite benedicti patris mei, sounded within a splendor, which was there such it overcame me, and I could not look. The sun departs, it added, and night cometh. Tarry ye not, but onward urge your steps, so long as yet the west becomes not dark. Straight forward through the rock the path ascended, in such a way that I cut off the rays before me of the sun, that now was low. And of few stairs we yet had made essay, ere by the vanished shadow the sun's setting behind us we perceived, I and my sages. And ere, in all its parts immeasurable, the horizon of one aspect had become, and night her boundless dispensation held, each of us of a stair had made his bed, because the nature of the mount took from us the power of climbing, more than the delight. Even as in ruminating passive grow the goats, who have been swift and venturesome upon the mountain tops ere they were fed, hushed in the shadow while the sun is hot, watched by the herdsman who upon his staff is leaning, and in leaning tendeth them, and as the shepherd, lodging out of doors, passes the night beside his quiet flock, watching that no wild beast may scatter it. Such at that hour were we, all three of us, I like the goat, and like the herdsman they, begirt on this side and on that by rocks. Little could there be seen of things without, but through that little I beheld the stars more luminous and larger than their wont. Thus ruminating and beholding these, sleep seized upon me, sleep that oftentimes before a deed is done has tidings of it. It was the hour, I think, when from the east first on the mountain Cytherea beamed, who with the fire of love seems always burning. Youthful and beautiful in dreams, methought I saw a lady walking in a meadow, gathering flowers, and singing she was saying, Know whosoever may my name demand that I am Leah, and go moving round my beauteous hands to make myself a garland. To please me at the mirror, here I bedeck me, but never does my sister Rachel leave her looking-glass, and sitteth all day long. To see her beauteous eyes, as eager is she, as I am to adorn me with my hands. Her seeing, and me doing, satisfies. And now, before the ante-lucent splendors that unto pilgrims the more grateful rise, as home returning, less remote they lodge, the darkness fled away on every side, and slumber with it, whereupon I rose, seeing already the great masters risen. That apple sweet, which through so many branches the care of mortals goes in pursuit of, today shall put in peace thy hungerings. Speaking to me, Virgilius of such words as these made use, and never were there guerdons that could in pleasantness compare with these. Such longing upon longing came upon me to be above, that at each step thereafter for flight I felt in me the pinions growing. When underneath us was the stairway all run over, and we were on the highest step, Virgilius fastened upon me his eyes, and said, The temporal fire and the eternal sun thou hast seen, and to a place art come, whereof myself no farther I discern. By intellect and art I here have brought thee. Take thine own pleasure for thy guide henceforth. Beyond the steep ways and the narrow art thou. Behold the sun that shines upon thy forehead. Behold the grass, the flowerets, and the shrubs, which of itself alone this land produces. Until rejoicing come the beauteous eyes, which weeping caused me to come unto thee, thou canst sit down, and thou canst walk among them. Expect no more or word or sign from me. Free and upright and sound is thy free will, and error were it not to do its bidding. Thee over thyself I therefore crown and mitre. There's a number of things I want to clarify really fast. The first Latin phrase that the angel says is the beginning of another one of the Beatitudes. Blessed are the pure of heart, purity being another one of the virtues that opposes lust in this terrace. And then the angel warns Dante as he's going through the fire, listen to the song that you hear on the other side. I'd imagine to give him courage to keep walking through the flames, because those words are, Venite benedicti patris mei. Come, you who are blessed by my Father. It's a quote from Scripture. It's what Jesus is going to say to those for whom the kingdom of heaven is where they're going. There is even more that is done to help Dante ease himself into the fire, as much as one possibly can. Specifically, Virgil makes 3 appeals to him. Number 1, he says, it will be painful, but you will not die. That's the theme of not only life and the entire Christian life, but of purgatory especially. You know, you're not in hell, you're not doomed, this is all temporary, right? You're going to make it through. The second thing Virgil does is remind him, once again, that we've heard him say time and time again throughout the Inferno and the Purgatorio as well. Do not be afraid. Let all your cowardice die on this spot, he said before the gates of hell. He always tells Dante not to be afraid. And that is something that reason can do for you in pursuit of virtue, just as Virgil does for Dante. And Virgil, even in limbo, is not afraid of anything. And the last thing he does is he reminds Dante that Beatrice's smiling face, her smiling eyes, are waiting for him just beyond here. I warned you the first time that he referred to Beatrice. I said, pay attention to what he says Beatrice is going to look like when Dante finds her at last. He says, oh, she's going to be smiling. She's going to be so happy to see you. Will she? Think about the circumstances. Think about what it was that caused her to send Virgil to go help him. Is she really going to be happy? I guess we'll see. In any case, it's enough to get Dante through the fire for the moment. Once he's through the fire, and once they finally pass the Terrace of the Lustful, night has fallen, and they all have to stop on the stairs that lead from the terraces of Purgatory to whatever's at the top, which we don't know until the following canto. And while he sits there, he looks up at the stars, which he says are bigger and brighter than normal. Now, we would know today that doesn't matter which mountains you climb, the stars are always going to look just as far away as they would if you were at sea level. But symbolically speaking, that means that he's closer to heaven, closer to the heavens than he was before. And remember, Dante takes the term the heavens quite literally. We're going to go through the Paradiso very soon, and in that he's exploring the heavenly bodies. While he sleeps, Dante has a dream of two women, Rachel and Leah, who, Mark Musa tells us in the notes, have always been taken to represent the two paths of the spiritual life, the active and the contemplative life. Leah, who goes about doing things, picking flowers, represents the active life, whereas Rachel represents the contemplative life. Now, for those of you who don't know, what are those two? The active life would be if one is following God, if one is seeking to be virtuous. How do you do that? Do you do that by going about doing good works? Do you run a charity? Do you take care of your family really well? Are you going about doing good acts for God? That's one thing. The second way is the contemplative life. Think of a monk in a monastery, or a whole community of monks or nuns in their convents. What are they doing? Well, some of them do have industries. Some monks brew beer or make special goods that they sell. And oftentimes you'll see nuns out in the community, but for the most part their job is prayer, to pray for the whole rest of the world, in the hopes that the sanctity and the prayers of these few souls can save very many. Let's spend some time, finally, on Virgil's last words to Dante, and unfortunately they are his last words to him. He starts off by saying, "That precious fruit which all men eagerly go searching for on many different boughs will give today peace to your hungry soul." That is happiness, which people go looking for in so many different places. All the places that we've seen throughout the Inferno and throughout the Purgatorio, they look for it in lust, they look for it in food, they look for it in money, pride, etc. They look for it in so many places. All of us, we all look for fulfillment and happiness in all the wrong places. But he says, Dante, you are finally going to find it. You are going to receive it today. There's a reason for this, and it's not just the fact that he's moving through purgatory and is almost at heaven. And it's explained in the next thing that he says, which I will read from the Mark Musa translation as well. "You now have seen, my son, the temporal and the eternal fire. You've reached the place where my discernment, reason's discernment, now has reached its end. I led you here with skill and intellect. From here on, let pleasure be your guide." Whoa, 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 whoa. Wasn't that what we were trying to work against this entire time? No. Remember at the very beginning of the Inferno, where Virgil says, "Remember, Dante, your philosophy, that the closer a thing comes to perfection, the more keenly it feels pleasure and pain." Dante has moved through purgatory. He's had the 7 P's, the 7 deadly sins, erased from his forehead and thus from his soul. Now, his inclinations are right and just. He can trust them. He can trust now that what he sees that appears to be good is good. He's not clouded by sin any longer. Until those lovely eyes rejoicing come, which tearful once urged me to come to you, you may sit here or wander as you please. Expect no longer words or signs from me. Now is your will upright, wholesome, and free, and not to heed its pleasure would be wrong. I crown and mitre you, Lord of yourself. And that is what true freedom is. Freedom to do what you ought. Dante's free will was never apart from him. He always had it, just as all of these souls did. But now he can do what he pleases, and that which he pleases is good because his soul has changed. Virgil says rightly, you've conquered yourself. You have full self-control, free will, and are capable of choosing to use it for the good perfectly. And thus, Virgil's part in this story is just about over. He is not going to give any more advice, although he will continue with Dante for a little bit. That's all for today, though. I'll see you tomorrow.